Welcome to Double Standards with me, Afshin Rattansi. For those of you who follow Pope Gregory's calendar, Happy New Year. If you want a preview of the year 2013, you come to the right place. What wars will America start this year? Coming up in the show, Barack Obama asks dead US presidents what to do in the year ahead. I discover the Earth has ended if you're in Europe, or worst of all, America. And looking to the geopolitical and financial year ahead, we speak to author and journalist Nick Cochin. The US military says that we have nothing to fear in 2013. The UK Daily Mail announced a human will always decide when a robot kills you. Pentagon's reassurance over fears of machine apocalypse. A US Department of Defense policy directive says American robots won't kill you of their own accord. So that's okay then. Towards the end of last year, Britain's BBC was in lots of trouble over its paedophile scandal. So to elevate staff morale, the BBC have moved everybody to a brand new $1.5 billion TV centre. That's about £1 billion sterling of UK taxpayers' money. But there's a problem. BBC staff injured by revolving doors after £1 billion revamp. This is CCTV footage of what happens to journalists using the new revolving doors at the BBC. Journalists claim that the problem keeps happening to them every time it's repaired, but strangely not if their journalism supports Israel. Corporate media, of course, will be keen to stop people thinking about the starvation caused by the crisis of capitalism by focusing on this year's birth of a new royal heir to the British throne. We at Double Standards have used sophisticated forensic computers to predict what Kate Middleton's child will look like. Here is the result. Strangely, this was the result regardless of whether the child was a boy or a girl. But notice the child will have the same eyes as Anne Boleyn and the red hair of its uncle, Prince Harry. The 2013 Special Olympics World Games start at the end of this month, and they're being held in Pyeongchang, South Korea. For those of you not familiar with the southern half of Korea, watch this.
오빤 강남 스타일. 지금부터 갈 때까지 가볼까.
Let's hope it goes better for the people of South Korea after the Games. Over here, all the public sports facilities were closed down after last year's London Olympics. Paralympic sponsors Atos, meanwhile, withdrew life-saving benefits from the disabled. So in 2013, is US President Obama going to be as big a liar as Ronald Reagan and increase federal spending while talking free market nonsense? Or is he going to make the right decision and finally liquidate capitalism in 2013? We've got one of the first interviews with him of the new year. Before I speak to him, let's see what some Americans may think, courtesy of Politisoid.
Well, I think that Ronald Reagan was delivering the right message at the right time, because what had happened was, I think the Democrats had gotten fat and happy.
The America I know is generous and compassionate. Yes, we take responsibility for ourselves, but we also take responsibility for each other, for the country we want and the future that we share.
That he seeks the solution to anything as another opportunity for a federal government program.
At this particular moment, with the private sector so weakened by this recession, the federal government is the only entity left with the resources to jolt our economy back into life.
I just happen to believe that free enterprise can do a better job producing the things that people need than government can. Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Well, let's go to the man himself. The first time he's come on this show since he won re-election against opponents like Jill Stein and Rocky Anderson. President Obama, thank you for one of your first interviews of 2013. Drone killer, what are you doing driving in a desert rally in the gambling town of Las Vegas? Have you got a few laps to go?
Just finished our rally here in Las Vegas.
Why did you do this? Were you trying to save another Solyndra solar-powered car?
Saving the auto industry. That's what is at stake every single day.
But the car wasn't solar-powered, it was powered by oil. Have you been fracking and building that XL Tarzan thing in Las Vegas?
I couldn't be more excited about the energy out here, but I always want to remind everybody what's at stake.
What's at stake is you being lobbied by big business at fancy events.
We go to these big events, we have a lot of fun, Katy Perry sang tonight.
Who on earth is Katy Perry? Anyway, I understand your New Year resolution is to be a nicer person and you're going to free the alleged WikiLeaks source, Bradley Manning, and pay for him to go back to university.
Ultimately, this is about the young Iraq veteran who introduced me, who's able to get a college education.
That's great. Manning, of course, exposed how U.S. Central Command in Florida tell U.S. forces to do terrible things. Maybe he did anyway. Are you going to use Air Force One to finally bomb and destroy CENTCOM headquarters?
We're going to be flying to Florida, and we're going to hit it first thing in the morning.
But you killed so many civilians in 2012, you've decided to fly inside the assassination drones in 2013. What do you do when you get on board?
Sleep on the plane, maybe take a nap more than sleep. But the great thing is, everywhere we're going, we're seeing great crowds.
But they're wedding crowds, and you've been killing them. That's a very strange answer, President Obama. Anyway, you were re-elected towards the end of last year. It's the beginning of a new year, and we've just heard that you're thinking of packing it all in and moving to occupied Palestine in one of Netanyahu's new illegal settlements. Your family, AIPAC, and members of Congress all know about your plans for 2013. What do these people think about it?
People are enthusiastic.
And what do you say to the Zionists?
Hey, everybody.
Thank you, President Obama. It's certainly going to be a very interesting year ahead for you.
Bye.
Where is everybody? What on earth happened to London? I know London had a New Year's Eve party. What a party it must have been. Who's that guy? Oh, that's the Goldman Sachs man who took over the Bank of England. What's he wearing surgeon's clothes for? Ah, he operated on the economy and destroyed it. What's that? Evacuation? What happened? Everyone's gone. I'm going to have to get out of Europe. The continent has collapsed. The crisis of capitalism destroyed all of Europe. Ireland, Spain, France, Italy, Greece, even Germany, all gone. I'm going to head to America. Something of Western civilization must have withstood the crippling interest rates. I'm here in America, but what's happened? There are no people here either. Oh no. What happened? What did Obama and Goldman Sachs do to the economy? America has been destroyed too.
Damn you! Damn you all to hell!
What's that? It's a message in a Coke can. What does it say? It says, made in China. Thank you, Americans, for melting down your population for treasury bonds. We needed your natural resources to power our economy. I've got to get to China. They've obviously survived. I've got to get to China. China seems fine, but why did they need all those resources? Ah, it was their plan to colonize the moon and Mars this year, 2013. I wonder what future's in store in 2013 for WikiLeaks' Julian Assange, who was granted political asylum in London's Ecuadorian embassy nearly 5 months ago. Well, one thing to watch out for is the presidential elections in Ecuador on 17th of February. If incumbent Rafael Correa, friend of Venezuela's Hugo Chavez, and Bolivia's Evo Morales doesn't get in, what will happen to Assange and all his information detailing US war crimes? Except that Correa is 30 points ahead of his nearest rival in opinion polls. But does that matter? President Rafael Correa of Ecuador said after the last US-backed coup attempt in 2010 that if he had been murdered, well, the US-backed opposition would have offered an explanation.
And if I had died that day, they would have said that I committed suicide.
Well, someone who's definitely looking to the future, won't be self-harming or committing suicide, is David Mulholland, to go through the cartoons for the year ahead. And you've got some sort of bull there. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Afshin. Yes, this is, I think, one of the big crises of this year. It's the ongoing with Europe. And here you have a giant bull saying, "You're getting." And you have Francois Hollande saying, "We must do something, Angela." And Angela Merkel saying, "We?"
Is that Angela Merkel? I mean, is that Hollande or is that Cameron?
It doesn't really matter at this point. The thing is that Europe is having declining growth, or it's contracting, the economy is contracting, and the big risk to the global economy is going to be Europe in the coming year. and what we see is Spain running away from the bull, and the U.S. doesn't look like it's going to be helping out much, and China's kind of iffy. So if Europe really falls down, then this is going to be a bad year.
So take us through this.
Yes, okay, here we have the next one. This is Gaza, and it has Israeli occupation forces saying, okay, we cut power and gas, what's next? And then the other soldier saying, heads. And what we're seeing
He's got an axe to kill Palestinians.
Well, it's actually meat cleaver. But what we're seeing throughout the Middle East is instability, intransigence,
caused by America.
And very often not. I wouldn't say that what's happening
Saudi Arabia you support, Israel
wait
you
a minute.
support.
You're saying that the different sides in Egypt are because of U.S. support? You're saying the different sides in Syria are because of U.S. support?
Of course.
You're saying that the Gazan, the disputes
Absolutely.
between the
Israeli
Palestinians
elections
in the West Bank and Gaza Strip are because of
Israel
U.S.
wouldn't
support?
exist
That's
without
ridiculous.
U.S.
That's
financial
absolutely
support. Israeli elections on
insane.
22nd January. Who's going to win?
That is uncertain, I think, at this point.
Anyway, one country's
here-
going to do really well. I've got to say, relations with Russia, between China and Russia, I think will be an important part of the year. But take us through this.
Well, this cartoon has nothing to do with Russia. It has all to do with China and the U.S.
China, there's the Pakistani guy there in the clutches of China, I think, there.
Well, yes, because, let's face it, China is a lot closer than the U.S. But what you have is...
nuclear weapons.
This, I think, is going to be an interesting year for China because China is beginning to come into its own. Recently, China has sent their own envoy to Gaza to try to ease over issues.
Getting in there in the Middle East.
Recently, China has said that they would take the U.S. invitation to join in military exercises in the South China, or in the South China Sea.
With America.
With America. Well, this is also an effort by the U.S. to try to calm down tensions between the U.S. and China.
Oh, not this. This year is the big non-story of 2012, and no doubt will be the non-story of 2013. And if it is a story, anyway, we heard recently that the Earth is finished.
The Middle East is the non-story. The
Middle
big
East
story
is the non-story.
is
what
that,
David
in
Mulholland
fact,
thinks.
it's climate change. It's climate change. I mean, the truth is that what we're seeing is that the world seems incapable of dealing with climate change. In the last 100 years, sea levels have gone up by 20 centimeters. Temperatures have gone up. We've already seen superstorms. We've seen Arctic ice.
It's too late
in the last year.
Too late. Tipping point reached. We don't have to care now.
It's not quite too late, but it's awfully close.
You keep saying that. I think they said the tipping point has been reached.
If there was any other issue that you could say was going to wipe out between 60 and 80% of the human population, that would be a story.
Sea level may rise and we won't be able to record double standards this time next year because the water will be too high?
No,
I do
probably
care
more like
actually
10
about
years.
what you're talking about. Okay, thank you, Tipping
Okay.
Point. Have a good time in 2013. You'll have lots of clubs, no doubt. You're going back to Essex, Leicester Square.
Which may also be underwater.
Well, thank you very much. See you next week.
Okay.
Well, joining me now to investigate the key events and trends to expect in 2013 is political analyst, author and journalist and corruption expert Nick Cochin, who writes for The Economist, The Independent, The Financial Times and The Guardian, to mention just a few publications. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Happy new Gregorian calendar year.
Is that right? Yes.
Let's start with, I suppose the main headlines around the new year have again been Syria, a place with lots of geostrategic uses by different powers. How do you see that playing in the coming year, the new year?
Well, you know, my reading of Syria is that we're looking at a powder keg, actually, and the noises now are saying to me intervention. And I don't think this is going to go on in the sort of steady, you know, as it were, steady decline into chaos. I suspect we will see some intervention at some point.
You think the electorates of NATO nations would countenance their leaders sending ground troops in?
I don't know about ground troops, because I think we're seeing the makings now of you know, the Turks have now got the anti-aircraft Patriot missile, so I think we're looking now at possibly a Libyan style air.
Well, I think Russia
free
has
zone.
been looking at that very closely, putting those missiles, Patriot batteries there.
Well,
they don't work, by the way, do they? Those you've always examined defence issues or corruption over defence.
have.
They don't work, do they, the Patriot missile batteries?
Well, let's face it, the Turks have fought for them, have been given them. They represent a rising in the sensitivity of the Syrian thing from an international perspective. So, it's no longer the local war, another Arab Spring country. It is now looking at a far more sort of geographically sensitive, critical point. I mean, we've got the risk of, what is Iran going to do? What's going to happen in Lebanon? I mean, that's another key thing. Where do Russia and China, are they really prepared to put their necks on the line?
Casting a shadow across all those foreign policy issues is the economic crisis.
Yeah.
And Europe, ever more tranches of the IMF going to Portugal, going to Spain, of course, Greece. How do you see that growing? Because I'm hearing something that, they're not going to take it. They can't keep bailing this out, let alone France and Italy now being subsumed somewhere else.
Yeah. It's painful. It's a totally difficult one. I take a slightly more bullish view of this scenario. My own feeling is that they put a lot of dosh in. Yes, the Germans are basically countenance Greece bailouts over the last year or so. If they'd wanted Greece to go down and they'd wanted Greece out, I think it would have happened by now. And I remember talking earlier in the year to brokers and economists and futurologists, and they were saying, Greece will be out in the second part of 2012, after the French election, after the German election. Greece will be quietly pushed out. Greece has been downgraded. It's a second-class EU member, a second-class Euro member, perhaps a fifth-class. It has not been exited from the Euro.
I know we don't have much time to do this whole world thing. I'm going to definitely take you up on this later in the year.
That's fine. I am more optimistic than a lot of people.
If that parliamentary building over there, that Gothic monstrosity, is burning in a few months' time, I will remember all of this.
You can well remember.
Latin America, the pink tide, as it were, still continuing in Latin America, despite certain attempts during the Obama administration was accused of destabilization in certain parts, certain countries. Venezuela, of course, is the country with the biggest known oil resources. Chavez with cancer. Do you think any possibility of pro-US alignment in Venezuela, altering things in Latin America?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but it seems to me, Chavez has set a very tough legacy here.
You believe that the commodity price bubble is over? Because I'm hearing still complex financial instruments still being, racked up and being sold on the market.
You know what? These markets and these banks are now being regulated much more heavily
by 5 people at the Serious Fraud Office here.
Well, the Serious Fraud Office is not a model of regulation.
You have written about this. Anyway, the reason I was getting into that about commodities is because of Africa.
Yes.
And a resurgent Africa, some people are saying.
Yes.
China. Yes. Continuing to.
Yes. I think Africa. China is going to dig deeper inroads into Africa. There's no question about that. I mean, Africa's democracies are, or Africa's governments, democracies. Africa's governments are, I believe, the weakest in the world. And also, I think if one's looking for the next terrorism in a big scale, I think one's looking at in Africa. I think that's worrying. I think someone like Nigeria, for example, I feel, and possibly someone like Indonesia or something, but Nigeria.
Libya, after the NATO involvement.
Libya is worrying. Nigeria is very worrying. Mali, I think, is very worrying. This is where it's like terrorism has moved, from sort of Middle East to the more fringe parts of the economy.
And terrorism was by the United States and British governments. That's one way of seeing it.
That's one way.
Look, we're running out of time because we have to do the whole of 2013. Right,
we've got a long way to
go.
Who
said that? I can't remember.
That's right.
Just finally, on perhaps in terms of all of the news, apart from the Higgs boson of 2012, Perhaps the key, generations later will say the key thing was the identification of the LIBOR rate manipulation, which affects every facet of human life on the planet. Presumably not going too far.
Well, I think it's fair to say that if when LIBOR exploded, the human life was not worth living, and we were looking at the end of the world.
I mean the price of everything from water to every aspect.
I think the key point about LIBOR is we are seeing a global enforcement investigation focus on LIBOR, because people are now, the big focus of 2013 is bank bashing, and banks are going to be bashed like they've never been bashed before. It started now with the Standard Chartered, with the HSBC, with the Barclays. Next year it's going full speed ahead on LIBOR and probably other raids and money laundering type
oil
things.
rates, energy
oil
prices.
markets, energy, who knows what markets. All the backlash of the last 20 years of liberalization, of free markets, of light touch regulation, the whole lot is now coming together in a massive Higgs boson of the financial sphere.
Thank you very much, Nick Cochin, for coming on the show. We'll definitely test you in the year ahead about all these predictions. Now it's time for People of Britain. Let's go to our roaming reporter. Time for our special section, People of Britain. Over to you, Leicester Square, and Happy New Year! Thanks, Afshin. Happy New Year to you too. 2013, a whole new year. And I'm standing in front of the ambulance that's due to take the British economy to a hospital for resuscitation. Anyway, it's People of Britain time. The European Union say they spent all their budgets on fireworks for New Year. Was it worth that?
Waste of money.
Really?
Waste of money.
Was it worth it?
I think it is. It's always good to end up with a big bang.
Was it worth the fireworks?
I didn't see the fireworks.
It's a waste of money.
Waste? A waste?
Yeah, waste.
Some. But no.
Like my friend's mum had cancer, they couldn't give her money for a disabled parking space, but I can spend it on fireworks for...
But wasn't she happier to watch the fireworks than for...
She needed that disabled parking space.
But if they closed all the hospitals down, they could have even better fireworks.
What? No. Why would you
no. Why do you want to do that?
Why do you want that?
People are ill.
The European Union says they spent all their budget on the firework display and on New Year's Eve. Was it a good investment?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, all their budget?
The entire thing?
All £10. Yes, excellent money. Excellent value for money. Whereabouts was the firework display? In the sky. Brussels.
In the sky.
Strasbourg.
President of Argentina says they want the Malvinas, or Falkland Islands, back. Britain says they'll give them Ireland as a fair swap. Is that a good swap?
Yeah, I think they should go for that. I just went to Ireland and it's horrible, seriously.
Argentina says they want the Malvinas or the Falklands Islands back. David Cameron says Northern Ireland could be given to them as a present instead. A good idea?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant idea.
Give it
it's
away.
the best one so far, yeah definitely.
Northern Ireland.
Yeah, just give it back. Just cut it off and give it back. Give it to the Argentina.
How would it be?
Happy.
How would it be sent to Latin America, Northern Ireland?
Well, a few towboats, I think. A few towboats should get it over there.
The president of Argentina wants the Falkland Islands, Malvinas, back. Britain says it'll give them Ireland instead. Is that a good swap?
Seeing as they have no what is it? They have no authority over making decisions for Ireland. I don't think that really makes sense.
Argentinian president says that the Malvinas or Falkland Islands need to be given back. David Cameron saying that he's willing to swap them for Northern Ireland, and he's going to give Northern Ireland to Argentina. A good idea?
Impractical. Better still give one half to Israel, one half to Palestine.
Scientists say they can put a computer chip inside old people's heads because pension money isn't there to pay for them, and they can be controlled like robots. Is that a good idea?
I don't know. I just had my operation yesterday. I don't know.
Scientists say that they can put computer chips into poor people's heads and they can be controlled by rich people. Is that a good idea?
They already control us.
Yeah, if it should be a good idea. I'm rich, so I think it's a good idea.
Okay, scientists say they can put computer chips inside the heads of the poor, pensioners, unemployed and so on, so they can be controlled as robotic drones. David Cameron likes the idea. What do you think?
Well, isn't he one of them? My nan's got one. She loves it.
The European Union has said it.
Italiano.
That's good. No, it's good. How's Italy going? Good fireworks in Italy over New Year?
Non capisco, no, italiano non...
There you have it, having the voices of the people of Britain. Well, it looks like the ambulance isn't going anywhere. George Osborne has stopped it, or they've just run out of petrol. Anyway, back to the studio. Not looking good for the British economy. Thanks, Lester. I'll be watching what you get up to this year very closely. You can email us at comment@doublestandardtv.com. See you next week.